Pushrod Fury. All right, Pushrod Fury here. Lots of stuff going on. So today is wiring harness day. So I think this is pretty daunting, but you just got to plow through it. But you have to do it if you're working on an old bike, especially if you got a basket case like I'm working on. You cannot just put the wiring harness back on, or if you have a really old bike, you can't just use the wiring harness. You're going to start destroying the electronics. There could be corrosion, lots of resistance where it shouldn't be, things like that, and you'll just have headache after headache. So you just plan a day of full headaches like this. Let me show you. One, you get a wiring diagram. This is in my Haynes manual. It's very small print. Sometimes they're online, but this is for the RD400. And here's a wiring harness. Now, I have some simple green just to wipe some of the insulators off as they're dirty. But it looks like a total train wreck. But you need a couple of things to get started. You need a multimeter so you can read resistance. You need something to label with. I'm just using painter's tape. And a pen, of course. And I'll show you what I've done so far. I've wiped some of the dirt off of it. Okay, that's fine. But what you do is you find the part that you kind of figure out, like this goes in the headlight basket, right? So it's a good place to start. And then you kind of aim towards the headlight basket part of the diagram. And you start attacking wires. So this is green and white. And I checked my diagram. And I traced it. And the green and white wire here goes to the green and white wire in a connector down here. Now, this is a problem because it's that green white wire in the diagram. It goes, I'm sorry, white green. It goes through here, right? And you follow the path. And it can get tricky. And it goes into the 6-prong connector. And that's a 6-prong connector here. Right? However, when I check continuity, I don't get anything. So I'm going to show you. I really should put like a tripod on this. But let's see. I set my meter to ohms of resistance. And I didn't clean anything, so I'm just going to kind of scrape around in there to make sure I got a good connection. It seems like I do. So it's my connector there and here. Just going to kind of scrape in there. Make sure I have a good connection. And go to this part of it and check here. And if you look on the meter, you see you don't want a 0. That means infinite. It means you have an open circuit. And look at that. I got 1.3 mega ohms. So what that tells me is either I can't get through the corrosion, which I don't think is the case, because usually if you just scrape the wire, the connectors, you'll cut through any corrosion. And you can see I don't have good continuity there, so I have to make a note that there's something wrong from here to there, and I gotta diagnose that. This is the kind of stuff that causes all kinds of problems. So I do have an issue there. However, I said, okay, I'll make a note of that. And then I started attacking the other one. So this connector, it mapped to the kill switch, which goes to the coil. So I found the matching wire here. Check for continuity. It's perfect. It's all zeros. And just keep going through this. And so, again, here's one. This is my high beam indicator light here. And it maps all the way to this part. Okay? And so this goes to the headlight switch. So this will get labeled high beam. So that'll be the high beam over there. So when your high beam's on, your indicator gets power and your indicator light comes on. So you just have to plow through each one of these. Also on the kill switch, I showed you that it went to the coils, and it also goes to the main fuse. The brown side goes to the brown over here, and I checked the continuity, and that's clean. So lots of wires to go, and I should probably set the camera up and like do time lapse of this, because it's kind of crazy to go through each one. But you do it here in your workshop or at your kitchen table or wherever, not live on the bike with power going through it, because you will jack up your bike. All right, back to work. All right, another really important thing is if you notice all those dots, right, that's where two wires come together. And when you see that, that's typically, if you see a bunch of them, it's typically going to trace to the ground. So they're all labeled B, which is black on the diagram. And if you trace that back, they all go to B, to the negative side of the battery, right? So again, we've all heard, check all your grounds. Well, this is how you check your grounds. So I cleaned up the end. This is the black lead to the battery right there. Okay, and again, this would be better if I had an alligator clip, but I think that'll be fine. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to check all of these leads that are black and make sure that I have zero resistance to there. So I have my meter set up. Put you here so you can watch what's happening. I'm going to put the meter at an angle so you can see it. And then we can check to make sure that all these grounds are good. Of course, the first one I check is no good. So we already have a problem. We have really high resistance to this cable, to this battery terminal or internal connection to the battery, the system ground, all the way to everything else in the grounding system. So again, if we just plug this into the bike, we'd have all kinds of problems. Okay. Now it's perfect. Okay, it's just corrosion. So I had dipped this in vinegar to try to clean it. It didn't come clean enough. So this is what we mean, right? That's gotta be really pretty. It can't be covered in oxidation And so that right there, just catching that, saves you hours and hours of headaches later. So you want to go through, clean the ends of the connectors, and verify that everything has zero resistance where it's supposed to. So of course, everything that's black on this diagram should trace back to this with zero resistance. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do, is check all of that. And we just showed too that simply holding the probe on there is not enough. I had to scrape at it, and that tells me there's too much oxidation on there, and that needs to be cleaned more. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that up and continue on with the rest of it. Okay, so I wanted to show you this. I know sometimes these are tin plated, but I don't think that's what's happening here. I don't know if I can get the GoPro to focus, but you see it's kind of gray on this and it's brass underneath. Well, we had, 3 mega ohms of resistance from this terminal to here where it enters the wiring harness. And so I took some steel wool to it, and as I started to remove some of that gray, might be oxidation, then I finally got down to zero resistance. So that right there, it's kind of tough to see. That needs to come off. You see the shiny parts, that's important, but that, whatever that dark gray is impeding good continuity. So I'm going to point that out, that again, you throw this in a wiring on the bike and start applying power to it, and it's definitely a nightmare situation going on, trying to diagnose all kinds of problems and potentially damaging your electronics. Okay, back to work. All right, let's see, now that I've got that cleaned up a bit, I'm reading zero resistance into the harness. So let's see if we can illustrate this okie dokie in a clear way. All right, so we want that, oops. We want all zeros on there, so we're just going to check. Yep, so that cluster is good. That one's good. So we've got those two. I think I've got a few more here. Here's one. That's good. So those are all the grounds on there. This is kind of weird. It's like a ground to nowhere. This shouldn't read anything. Yeah, it's not connected anywhere. Okay, let's check some other grounds. That's good. Man, I feel like I won something today. Let's check this one. Yep, that's good. See? That's half the battle right there. Check your grounds. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Okay, here's one that's a little weird. That's good. Okay, so no big surprise. If you've got a corroded, terminal and it's part of the ground, you can have trouble, and that's the main one that attaches to the battery. So we'd have all kinds of problems if we didn't diagnose that and fix it. So I know it seems simple, but if you don't do it, you're going to get yourself in big trouble. Yep, that's good. So all the grounds check out on this harness so far. Oops, here's another one. Yep, and that's good. So now I'm going to go through and double check everything. I just wanted to show you what's happening here. And it does look a little messy. I'll clean it up and I'll label as I go. So, glamorous? No. But it's all traced and labeled. And so this RD400 wiring harness all checks out. Everything's good. Got everything labeled. I traced all the wires, one end to the other, make sure we have zero resistance, perfect continuity. And so when I go to assemble the bike, I just make it that much easier to just plug everything in. It's exactly what I did for the Kawasaki, and it took maybe half an hour to get the wiring sorted. So it took me about, I don't know, 2-3 hours to trace it all and check everything and have a coffee break in between. Now it's all done. So there you go. There's wiring harness tracing, referencing the wiring diagram, and just going through everything, be real methodical about it, and cleaning the grounds, making sure that you have nowhere for the to block those electrons from moving around. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Like it, subscribe, leave some comments, and continue on this restoration. Thank you.